Hey there. Have you ever wondered which ancient goddesses you feel might be stirring within you? Have you even considered this possibility? It was Carl Jung, world-renowned psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, who theorized that we're all influenced by invisible archetypes that shape our behavior and influence our world. So that's today's topic. And in addition to the topic of the ancient goddess archetypes residing within each of us, I want to speak a little bit more about archetypes. What are they? What are some examples of archetypes? And how understanding that aligning with your kind of God-given strengths or archetypes can be of significant benefit to you in your life right now. I also want to tell you a little bit more about Carl Jung. He's pretty significant, especially in the world of understanding consciousness and how powerful and true he really was. He was genius level for sure, and significant to influencing our world. In addition to this, I'm also going to share a free online event that's related to the divine feminine or ancient goddess energies within each one of us, and introduce you to a widely esteemed author and psychiatrist, Dr. Shinoda Bolen. She's got quite the resume and significant contributor to this notion of kind of the ancient goddess archetypes within each one of us. But before I dive into that, my name is Liz Garcia. I'm your happy host here at highvibetriberadio.com on the podcast and highvibetribetv.com on the YouTube channel. I am also founder of the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com, and I'm on a mission to help you raise your level of consciousness on a wide variety of topics and help you be the change you want to see in your life and ripple that change and significant intention out into the world. So I support this intention by creating and curating content that is calibrated as to its higher level of consciousness, or that has the indicators of higher consciousness, that has the power within it to actually shift you in significant ways. And in the absence of understanding the map of consciousness and where truth and power really exist, though it's not a mystery, it's good to kind of put things into context to understand, okay, is this going to help me or not? So we have a lot to cover today. So I want to kind of dive right into what today's topic, which is about, the ancient goddess archetypes and the divine feminine that reside in each one of us. And if you kind of pay attention to yourself and to the topic today, you can identify patterns and recognize, hey, that sounds like me. So let's get started on archetypes first. And I'm going to give you some quickie definitions on what archetypes are. So they're essentially a repeated image that comes through the ages from human experience as a pattern or a symbol. They can be thought of as a model after which other things can be patterned, like a prototype or a permanent underlying structure. They're templates for characters, like in movies or books, with which the reader or movie watcher is familiar with and can identify with. So it's like, a hero, all books and movies have heroes essentially. So it's easy to identify who that hero is. And it's because due to these invisible patterns in consciousness that we are able to recognize things. And archetypes are encouraged in fiction, but care needs to be given in order to prevent them from becoming stereotypes. So it's good to understand what's a stereotype versus an archetype. So stereotypes, like archetypes, are templates, like in consciousness, patterns in consciousness. But a stereotype is categorized as an oversimplified and therefore contorted conception of an idea. Okay, so that's essentially, archetypes are patterns in consciousness. And if you're intuitive or, I understand that I'm an energy reader for sure. I didn't know what I was reading necessarily, but I can see patterns in people. And I think, as a former restaurant owner and retail store owner, where you see thousands of people, you start to see patterns in people. And this is kind of addressing that ability to read people. You can read them like right away because there's energy running that's readable to all of us, really. So I'm just aware that I do it pretty well and have been told I do it pretty well. So now I'm like, well, I guess I do. But which is not to pat myself on the back. But this is kind of what we're talking about. Patterns in consciousness, energies in consciousness. So I'm going to give you some archetype types. And these are the 12 archetypes that Carl Jung created. And before I tell you the types, let me tell you who Carl Jung was in case you don't know. So he was born Carl Gustav Jung. And he was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology. Jung's work has been influential in the fields of psychiatry, anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, psychology, and religious studies. He worked as a research scientist, and during his time, he came to the attention of Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis. So we've all heard of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, presumably, in the field of psychiatry. So Jung was the founder of analytical psychology as opposed to Freud, who was the founder of psychoanalysis. The two men conducted a lengthy correspondence and collaborated for a while on a joint vision of human psychology. Now, Carl Jung was born in 1875 and he passed in 1961. So I didn't realize he was from the late 1800s. That's pretty huge. And as a teacher of consciousness and the map of consciousness, I love to share consciousness calibrations to put things into context. So the map of consciousness is a scale of 0 to 1,000. Anything over 200 is positively oriented, constructive, life affirming. Anything below 200 is the opposite of that. It's rare for a human being to calibrate above 300 on the map of consciousness, as 77% of the world calibrates below 200. So just good to know. Carl Jung calibrated 505, I think. It was in the 500s on the map of consciousness. Is significant in that he's operating from the land of love, which is 500 and above, which is a superpower in consciousness that holds significant truth and power in it. So he's operating from the spiritual dimension, not the linear dimension of the mind. Now, Sigmund Freud, as to put him into context, they're both genius level, and genius level consciousness is typically 499. But Carl Jung probably unwittingly aligned with the nonlinear and broke free of the mind when he entered the spiritual domain. So this is kind of the limitations of genius, is that you get stuck in the land of the mind and science thinking that's all there is, when in fact it's way more to it. And Sigmund Freud and Albert Einstein as examples calibrate at 499, but nowhere near the understanding that love and the power of love is really significantly more powerful and true and nonlinear in nature. So there's putting that into context. And people in the 500s and 400s on their own level of consciousness have a huge influence on the world, as we know. This is true. This is how, when you're operating from super high levels of consciousness, you likely are providing a ripple effect out into the world so that humanity can evolve. So here's the types of archetypes that Carl Jung identified. And you will likely identify with one or more of these. So there's the innocent, the orphan, the hero, the caregiver, the explorer, the rebel, the lover, the creator, the jester, like the clown, the class clown, right? The sage, the old wise one, someone who's really inwardly focused, the magician, and the ruler. And I know for sure I've got the creator archetype is super strong within me. And just as an example, in this particular image I'm looking at online by Carl Jung, let's describe the hero. So they're saying there's a goal to each archetype, and the goal of the hero is to belong. There's a shadow side of each archetype, which is really what we're here to kind of transcend and overcome. And the shadow side, they're calling the flaws of the hero, is the need to fight, i.e., like the Incredible Hulk, Superman, Wonder Woman, right? And the skill that they have is courage. So that's just interesting. And if you're a creator type or artist like I am, the goal is to realize a vision. This is a visual thing. It's kind of interesting. The flaws is perfectionism. That's a big flaw. It's a lower level of consciousness. Have to be perfect. To be perfect, that's a shadow side. And the skill is imagination, super creative, imaginative, blah, blah, blah. So there's an art, I'm pretty sure the website is called archetypes.com, which you can go in and find out what your major archetypes are, which is super fun and interesting to know. And as my other work is I'm a personal brand developer and marketer, and I help division brand, create and put together personal brands for solopreneurs. And within the world of branding and marketing, there are definite archetypes that brands will adopt because they're so recognizable and they're recognizable to the viewer. Like, if you put Superman in a commercial, you're kind of aligning with superpowers, right? Or the hero, a lot of brands want to be your hero or not, just as an example. So let's I want to introduce you to a free online event that's called Goddesses in Every Woman, How Discovering Your Natural Archetype Can Liberate Your Full Expression. And this was created by the Shift Network, for whom I am an affiliate partner. But I wanted to share this because it's one of the more popular courses that we as affiliates for the Shift Network, we sell a fair amount of these courses by Gene, which is super interesting, that we're kind of aligned energetically and our audience is aligned with this type of higher consciousness and interest. So I'm going to read about the event, which you can register for at any time below the link in the video or podcast. And you can watch it at your own convenience. It's already happened. It's already been recorded. And this is what the Shift Network would be considered like an evergreen class. So you can watch it at your own convenience. And then if you decide you want to learn more, you can dive into her. It's either a 7 or 8 week online course that costs usually $297, I guess. I think most courses are around $300. So let's read about the course, because I want to lead you into the opportunity to raise your level of consciousness and shift yourself in significant ways with something that can kind of open up your awareness even greater. So it was Carl Jung who theorized that we are all influenced by invisible archetypes that shape our behavior and influence our world. Discovering and working with these archetypes can open us up to powerful forces of transformation. And for women in particular, this means accessing the energies symbolized by ancient goddesses, each of which represents a core dimension of femininity. This is like the divine feminine we're talking about, aligning with your own kind of ancient goddess. Each one of them holds, an interesting pattern. And let me just tell you what the 7 goddesses are so that you'll know what I'm saying. And when I say them, some of them you're going to know, oh, she's the goddess of fill in the blank. So the first one is, so here's the 7 goddesses that Gene addresses, and they're all Greek goddesses. There's Artemis, Athena, Hestia, Hera, Demeter, Persephone, and Aphrodite, right? Right off the top of my head, Aphrodite has been known as the goddess of love, right? And Athena, I've always known Athena as the goddess of wisdom. And what's super interesting, I think before I interviewed Gene, I created a personal branding and brand development website called the Athena Arena. So I think it's safe to say I'm aligned with the energy of Athena, which is really running, consciousness of wisdom and courage and creativity, is the energy of the Athena goddess is running within me strongly. So those are the 7 goddesses that one of these is going to be your strong suit, likely. And to come into awareness of which one that is, you can start flowing with it instead of flowing against it, because you're going with what the outer world may have told you you should be. We allow ourselves to get shoulded all over by the external world and growing up and, life itself. So let's read a little bit more here now that we know who the goddesses are. So when we unveil the archetypal energies present within us, we gain profound insights into how we can live more meaningful, authentic, and joyous lives. We access more power, depth, and wisdom, certainly about ourselves and our innate abilities. So it's with great excitement that I invite you to a special free online event featuring best-selling author Jean Shinoda Bolen. And by the way, I have interviewed Jean. She is lovely and brilliant. And for those of you on YouTube, I will make sure the last video that comes up at the end of this is my interview with Jean, so you can go further right away and check it out. And for those of you on the podcast, I will repost my interview with her the day after this one. So after after it gets going, you'll find it right after this particular post. So she's the author of the groundbreaking book, Goddesses in Everywoman, Powerful Archetypes in Women's Lives. It became an instant classic when it was published 30 years ago, and it remains a foundational work for feminist psychology. Now, when I interviewed Jean, it's over 2 years now, she had sold close to 1 million copies. I think it was 900,000 copies, and she's likely broken 1 million by now. So there's pretty significant success on this front, which typically higher consciousness is attractive to people because it's powerful truths being shared in these types of books that are transformational in nature. So now you can go beyond the book because Jean's created this free webinar and her course. And you can experience Jean's revolutionary teachings during this complimentary virtual event, which again is called Goddesses in Every Woman: How Discovering Your Natural Archetype Can Liberate Your Full Expression. Now, this is an hour-long mini workshop in which you're going to discover with Jean, first of all, a simple test to reveal which goddesses are currently influencing. Are you Athena, like I think I am? Or Aphrodite, a little, cosmic love muffin, or Artemis, Hera, Persephone, or any of them. So you're going to discover how becoming aware of the mythic dimensions of your life choices can inspire deeper creativity and greater fulfillment. And how stepping through past fears and self-imposed limitations can awaken the life-enhancing energies of a new goddess archetype guiding you now. So there may be, an innate energy field wanting to enter your consciousness because it's such a strong foundation for you that you want to start feeling your way into it because it's your powerhouse, right? It's your strong suit. You're also going to discover why every woman is a woman in between. I'm not quite sure what she means by that. And acted on from within by goddess archetypes and from out by cultural stereotypes and expectations. So I think what she means here by a woman in between is like, are you following your inner voice? Or are you still like sitting on the fence and paying attention to what the outer world is saying to you, right? What should you do? So you're also going to discover how the potential shadow qualities of each archetype can cause problems and conflicts. And I can assure you, when you kind of reveal or come into awareness of your propensity for the shadow side of something, an archetype as an example, or the shadow side of your astrology, or the shadow side of your Enneagram, it's good to come into that awareness so that when you feel or observe yourself doing the pattern or being the pattern, you're like, okay, I'm willing to let this go and move forward. So to harness the energies of 2 transformational currents, the claiming of your signature goddess archetype and the expanded knowledge of how the other 6 can contribute to your soul purpose. So that's what this hour-long workshop is all about. And I suggest that you take a little trip with Jean. She's a brilliant teacher, right? She's got quite the credentials that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. But before I do, I want to share a couple of testimonials from Jean's esteemed colleagues, whom you may recognize. So Gloria Steinem, world-renowned feminist, says this about the book, about her book. The highest value of this book lies in the moments of recognition it provides. That insightful second when we understand and internalize, when we recognize what we ourselves have experienced, feel trust because of that truth, and then are taken one step further. And then Rita Mae Brown says this, a glorious book. Jean's weaving of myth, science, and keen observation makes this an outstanding contribution to the humanities. So again, you can register for this event below the podcast or the video cast. It's a free online event that leads to a paid, I think 7 or 8 week online course. You can really discover which goddess type is strongest within you. Now, lastly, I want to share a little bit about Jean because she's brilliant. And let's read about Jean. So Jean Shinoda Bolen, MD, is a psychiatrist, Jungian analyst, and an internationally known author and speaker. She's the author of 13 influential books, including The Tao of Psychology, Goddesses in Every Woman, and Urgent Message from Mother, with over 80 foreign translations. She's a distinguished life fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and a former clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of California at San Francisco, a past board member of the MS Foundation for Women and the International Transpersonal Association. She was a recipient of the Institute for Health and Healing's Pioneers in Art, Science, and the Soul of Healing Award, and the Association for the Study of Women and Mythology's Demeter Award for her lifetime achievement in women's spirituality. She's a diplomate of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. She has been featured in 2 acclaimed documentaries, the award-winning anti-nuclear proliferation film, Women for America, for the World, and the Canadian Film Board's Goddess Remembered. The Millionth Circle Initiative was inspired by her book and led to her involvement in the UN. She's an advocate for a UN Fifth World Conference on Women, which was supported by the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly in 2012. Holy crow, she is not resting on her laurels, this one. And you can't beat the wisdom of someone of this nature, someone who's dedicated their lives to mastering their craft and understanding this particular field of interest. So if you like what's going on here, you're interested, you know someone who will love taking this course, anyone who talks about the divine feminine is going to love this course. Share it with a friend or family member or coworker. And if you like what's going on here, please provide reviews for us wherever you're watching or listening to this, as it helps us support our intention to raise the level of consciousness of the planet that used to be 207, which is positively oriented. It fell back below 200 during this whole coronavirus politicalization of everything part of our world today, and raise it to the level of neutral, which is 250 on the map of consciousness, which is a huge ask. And I can't do it alone. But If you join me on this mission, thank you. My intention is to help you raise your level of consciousness on a wide variety of topics and become the change you hope to see in your life, and let that ripple out into the world. Thank you so much for your time and joining me, and we'll see you again soon.